You know that feeling, right? You walk past your front door on a chilly day and whoop, there's that little puff of cold air. Or maybe you see that tiny sliver of light creeping in from under the door at night. It feels like such a small annoyance, something you'll get around to fixing eventually. But what if that little draft is actually a secret message from your house? Well, in this explainer, we're going to decode exactly what your home is trying to tell you. So let's put on our home detective hats for a minute. That drafty door, it isn't just a faulty piece of wood and hardware. Think of it more like a messenger, delivering a critical clue about the health of your entire house. The real question is, are you listening? All right, first up, we have to start seeing that gap not as a simple inconvenience, but as our first major clue in this whole investigation. Yeah, these signs probably sound super familiar. That little cool breeze you feel when you're nearby, seeing daylight peek through when it shouldn't, or having a door that sticks and needs a good solid shove to close. And don't even get me started on a latch that just refuses to click into place. These aren't just little quirks of an older home. They're symptoms. And this, right here, really gets to the heart of it. The draft you see on the surface, that's just the tip of the iceberg. What's going on underneath could be a huge warning sign for a much bigger issue, like a serious structural shift or a hidden moisture problem. That visible symptom is often the least important part of the puzzle. So, and this is the crucial part, ignoring these signs has real consequences. A draft means you're basically throwing money out the window because your heating and cooling systems are working way harder than they need to. That gap is also a flashing welcome sign for insects and other pests. And of course, as the real problem gets worse, that door just becomes more and more of a pain to use. All right, so like any good detective, we're going to start our investigation with the most obvious culprits before we go looking for something bigger. Okay, so here are the usual suspects. You've got simple things like loose hardware or worn-out seals, and those are definitely common. But see that big piece of the pie right there? Structural shifts. That one is often the hidden villain of our story, and it's the one we really need to pay attention to. So first things first, we gotta rule out the simple fixes. I mean, over time, the screws in your hinges can get loose, which makes the whole door sag a little. Wood also naturally expand in the humid summer and shrinks in the dry winter, which can create temporary gaps. And of course, you've got old, cracked weather stripping. That's a classic, and thankfully, a pretty easy fix. But what happens if you've already checked the hinges and the seals look totally fine? Well, now our investigation takes a really interesting turn. We have to look beyond the door and start thinking about a much bigger suspect, the house itself. This is where we uncover the hidden culprit. You see, after you've checked all of the simple stuff, you arrive at this really critical realization. The door you've been blaming this whole time, it might be perfectly fine. The problem isn't the door. That's it right there. The door is just the messenger. It's often the very first thing to show a sign of trouble because it's a precisely fitted object inside a huge dynamic structure. So when that structure moves, even just a tiny, tiny bit, the door is the first thing to let you know something's up. So what in the world is a structural shift? Well, it's what happens when parts of your home's foundation or its frame move as the ground underneath it naturally settles over the years. Floor joists can start to sag. Now, this movement might only be a few millimeters, but believe me, that is more than enough to knock a perfectly square door frame completely out of whack, causing all those symptoms we talked about. And this is where having a professional eye becomes absolutely crucial. A trained expert doesn't just look at the door, they read the entire scene, connecting dots that most of us would totally miss. Let's take a look at how they approach it. A real pro follows a clear, methodical process. First, they analyze the gap itself. Is it even all the way around? Is it wider at the top or the bottom? Second, they'll double-check all that simple stuff we talked about, the hardware, the frame. But the most important step is number 3. They inspect the surroundings. They're looking for clues in the floors, the walls, and the trim all around the door. And here's how an expert decodes those clues. Where you or I might just see a gap, an expert sees a story. A gap that's wider at the top tells them the house is settling unevenly. Those tiny hairline cracks in the drywall right next to the frame, that's a huge sign that the wall itself is under stress. And a door that drags on the floor is a classic giveaway for sagging floor joists. See? It's all connected. Okay, so we've cracked the case, we've identified the culprit, so now what? It's time to talk about the resolution. Let's look at how to properly fix the problem and, more importantly, how we can make sure there isn't a sequel to this mystery down the road. Of course, the best way to deal with these problems is to prevent them from happening in the first place, right? This just takes a little bit of proactive maintenance. Keeping your indoor humidity consistent helps stop those wood frames from swelling and shrinking all the time. Checking your exterior caulking is so important for keeping moisture out. Even something as simple as tightening your door hinges every few months can work wonders. And proper insulation isn't just for warmth, it helps manage temperature and moisture. Honestly, a periodic home inspection can catch these things early, way before they become a major headache. You know, this quote from the source material just sums it all up perfectly. A door that suddenly becomes crooked isn't just a door problem, it's a clue. It is your home's early warning system telling you, hey, look a little deeper. So, we'll leave you with this question. Now that you know how to read the signs from your door, what other small problems in your home might be trying to send you a message? A sticky window, a small crack in the ceiling, a floor that creaks just a little too much? Your home is always talking. The trick is just learning its language.